see in the Cope Formation and portrayed how they would have lived, perhaps. And that's neat. I hope next time people go out on one of the local field trips that you think about what the ecosystem might have looked like at the time. Brachiopods, trilobites living on the surface of the sediment, maybe cephalopods swimming through the overlying water column, maybe a few organisms also burrowing into the sediment below the water. Okay, here's a few more constructions. Triaphorus. Okay, and this book covers paleoenvironments through time, beginning with the Cambrian all the way through the Cenozoic. And it's neat to look at how these ecosystems changed in terms of the critters that were occupying different, what we call ecological niches, doing different things, eating in different ways and occupying different parts of the physical environment, whether it be the water column or the sediment below. And we've now passed into the Cretaceous, and we've got ammonites, crinoids attached to logs. A variety of organisms now starting to burrow into the sediment, and that's something you didn't see back in the Ordovician. And here we are in the Cenozoic. A lot more going on. We've now got fish swimming around, and there's some algae and a few borean clams there. So it's interesting to think about how ecosystems have changed in this way, in terms of how they might have lived at the time. And I often think of myself as a time-traveling marine biologist. I know it sounds a little bit wacky, but I started off as a marine biologist, and essentially I now go back in time, depending on the rocks I'm looking at, obviously, back to the Ordovician to reconstruct how that Ordovician paleoenvironment might have looked like. So that's the daydreaming part of things. Okay, well, I've now left UC. I successfully finished my thesis with Carl and Arnie, and I still have an office much like the one I had at UC, but I now work in a museum, and this was also one of my dreams as a child. I visited the American Museum of Natural History when I was 10 years old, and that was truly inspirational as a kid. I'm now working in a museum, and this is the Yale Peabody Museum. And it's on the campus of Yale University. And I thought I might just take a brief excursion to tell you a little bit about its history. The chap on the lower left there is O.C. Marsh. Marsh was a famous dinosaur worker. Famous also for his battle or confrontations with Cope, another preeminent dinosaur worker in the middle to late 1800s. Now, Marsh did his undergrad at Yale, and with the help of his rich uncle, who's the chap in the middle there, George Peabody, he formed a collection, a museum, and also got a professorship out of it. His uncle gave him $150,000 at the time to start this museum and get a job at Yale, which is a nice thing to fall into your lap. And Marsh, using this new position, went out west and started his battles with Cope, collecting dinosaur remains. Another, well, perhaps unfortunate but also good thing happened to Marsh, and that his uncle died a few years later and left him the rest of the fortune. Peabody was quite rich at the time. So that really helped Marsh greatly enlarge the collections. And at the time, natural history museums in the United States were just getting off the ground. Unlike, well, many of the fossils collected during the early 1800s went overseas to places like the British Museum of Natural History. Great institutions like the Smithsonian and plants change, and it's really neat to be able to walk along the length of that hallway and see how things have changed. Okay, now one of the jobs I do at the museum is to identify, revise identifications, and assist in the cataloguing of the Yale collections. So my office is constantly turning around drawers of fossil gastropods and bivalves. Those are the groups that I'm particularly interested in. And they typically come in with quite archaic labels. Some material hasn't been looked at since the late 1800s, early 1900s. And often it's coming straight from overseas. So we have large collections of material from France, Romania, Italy, and it's never actually been curated by Yale paleontologists. So I take the material on the left, and they get reboxed, and they get nice printed labels, and all the data is available in an electronic database, and you can actually access it over the internet. So not only am I doing the curatorial work at Yale, we're also producing scientific data that folks around the world can access. I'm glad Brenda's not here because they're just wonderful, wonderful facilities at Yale. They had a new building built in 2001. It was funded by the class of 1954, which invested a lot of money in the stock market and got it out before they lost it. And they built a new building which houses the collections. And the process that's taking place at the moment is that collections are coming out of the old grimy basement of the Peabody Museum and are being housed in this new collection facility. So it's wonderful resources. It's a great place to be, and there's a wonderful staff and volunteers as well. And these are the collections themselves. They're on these big rolling stacks, and this is actually on the left is one of UC's former students in geology, Jessica Basin. Still working with Carl, I should say. And she's just putting away some corals. I took that photo this morning. And I asked her to pick out her favorite fossil, or at least favorite item in the museum. And as you folks know who that is, the fossil? Isotelus maximus, yeah. And it's actually it's a reconstruction, it's a model. I was reading the label based on a fragment of the tail there, so it's not based on a specimen that's nearly as nice as that, that's for sure. But it's got a very pretty display of Ordovician brachiopods around the outside. Okay, now.